Aloha! Welcome to Chapter 2. In this chapter, we're going to look at strategy as it relates to technology, or what some refer to as IT strategy. This is an ongoing concern of managers. It's really quite hard to get right for a variety of reasons. But as you start learning about information technology, you need to understand how it's going to fit into your business. And if you pick up business magazines or newspapers, you're likely going to get conflicting advice. Okay, we're going to find things like the Harvard Business Review editor a couple years back, this was probably 2005, writing an article said IT doesn't matter. IT is not a source of strategic competitive advantage. You'll get other leading scholars coming out of elite universities and business researchers and consultants describing technology as steroids for the business. So how do you see through all of this? Which is it? Is it IT's not competitive? It's a utility that needs to be paid for, but don't spend too much time on it, focus on your regular business strategy? Or is it this is really going to make a huge difference, so you should pay attention to it? The short answer is it really depends on your business and on your managerial style. You can have a successful business with an IT-enabled strategy, and you can have a successful business with IT being approached as kind of a business function, something like the electricity that needs to take place, but not something we really innovate with. Okay. What you're going to read about in this book leans toward the let's innovate with IT as this can matter. But what you need as a future manager is the ability to look beyond the hype. The hype on both sides. Recognize that technology isn't going to save you from bad business processes, but also that technology is not necessarily the liability that some people think it is. Okay. So how do you do that? Well, you start with good business principles. In the early 2000s, we were starting to go into what was called the dot-com bubble. Okay. So late 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of companies that were growing on innovative uses of technology. They were going after venture capital funding and getting users and getting these million-dollar valuations on their IPOs. And we were talking about it was going to be a new economy. It was growth all the way up. We wouldn't have a recession again. And then it all kind of fell apart because a lot of people didn't realize that making a good business isn't just about getting users. Making a good business is not just about having shiny new internet-enabled technology. Making a business requires a good, solid strategy and an approach to management. And that strategy can be enabled and strengthened by technology. Okay? So lots of businesses failed. Some of those businesses that started in the 90s are still around. Some of them will study Netflix, Google, etc. But there's a lot of them that just failed for lack of understanding good strategy. So this chapter introduces some concepts around strategy. How do you approach this? What does it mean? And we'll start with competitive advantage, sustainable competitive advantage. Okay. And the leading scholar on this idea of business competition is a man named Michael Porter. He works at Harvard Business School. And 30 years ago, he developed this model that says businesses compete within an industry, and there's some frameworks that we can look at to see how competitive they are. But a firm he defines as having a sustainable competitive advantage if its financial performance it consistently outperforms its industry peers. Okay? And by financial performance, he basically means return on equity, your return on investment. Okay? Based on the inputs you are getting, what types of returns are you receiving? And how do those returns compare to others in your industry? Okay. If your returns on your investment and on your equity are significantly higher than others in your industry, then you have a sustainable competitive advantage. Okay. And your industry could be various lines of your business. Okay. So some large companies, they may have several different business industries in which they compete in. Okay. So as we start saying, well, how in the world can we get above average financial returns? Okay, above average returns on our inputs, on our investments. Okay? In order to understand the path to this sustainable competitive advantage, we have two concepts we need to sort out. One is operational operational effectiveness, and the other is strategic positioning. Operational effectiveness just means we look at our operations and we do them as best as we can. Okay? Better, faster, stronger. And technology can have a key role here, right? So if I have a system in place for processing customer orders, and I take the customer's orders, I receive payment, and then I provide the goods to the customer. Okay. So what do I do with technology? I bring technology in and I automate as much as I can so that the order fulfillment process is completely automated. And now with the same number of inputs, I can service, maybe 10 times as many customers. Right? So this is the idea of operational effectiveness. I'm doing the same thing I did previously, but now thanks to automation, I can scale up with fewer inputs or with the same number of inputs. So the same investment, the same equity, now I'm getting more revenue. So I'm getting operational effectiveness. Okay. There's a problem with operational effectiveness as a source of sustained competitive advantage, and that's this. Automation is usually easily copied. Okay. So if I invest in automated order fulfillment systems, right? So if I'm a bank and I invest in a phone service system so that people can check their balance and transfer money and listen and check for their deposits of their paycheck, right? That's an automated thing. It used to be people called a teller up on the phone and said, I want to know what my bank balance is. So fine, we get some software. Now you call your bank and the first thing you hear is, if you want to speak in English, press 1. And then it's, for your account balance, say account balance or press 2. And then you enter in your account code. That's an automation of an existing business process. Okay. Now, if American Savings Bank automates their phone service so that now they don't have to have, customers can get their balances faster, more accurate, and we're not having to hire as many people to do it. Well, then my competitor at Bank of Hawaii can also invest in the same hardware, the same software, and train their employees to maintain those same systems. Okay, so operational effectiveness, increased efficiency and profitability through automation is usually easily copied. I can buy the same software, I can buy the same hardware, and so it's not going to be sustainable advantage. It'll give you some short-term gain, but not sustainable. And this is the core argument against using IT as a source of strategic competitive advantage. But if we look at strategic positioning, that means we're going to do something differently. We're going to do something differently than others have. Okay? Then we might be able to get gains that others can't copy easily. Okay? So I'm Apple Computer. They've changed their name since to just Apple. So I'm Apple. I go in and I negotiate deals with the recording industry. I get contractual deals so that I have distribution rights on individual songs instead of bundled albums of CDs. And I create an IT infrastructure, an information technology infrastructure, that allows me to receive orders and distribute music over the internet. Okay. Now I'm doing something different. Right? I'm not just automating my order processing. I've created a brand new product. Something that's going to be hard to copy. Okay? I'm strategically positioning myself. Okay? I can use technology to set my company apart. You will not get this same service, this same offering, this same product elsewhere because of my technology-enabled operations. Okay? So that's strategic positioning. Operational effectiveness is necessary. In this competitive environment, we need to be as efficient as possible. Okay? But we also need to watch for ways to position ourselves so that people can see that we're different in some way. Okay? And as we look at these strategic differences, then we can look for technologies to support them and think of different ways of doing business. Now, you say, that's great. I need to be strategically positioned. But how do I identify ways that I can be different? What is it that I can make have, do, be, that is not easily copied. Okay? So what we're looking at is we're trying to develop strategic assets. And for strategic assets, we want to look for things from a framework called the resource-based view of the firm. The resource-based view of the firm was an idea that firms exist because they have strategic assets that are VRIN, valuable, rare, imperfectly imitable, that means difficult to copy, and non-substitutable. Okay? As we look at these things, we're looking for resources that have value to the customer, right, and that are hard to come by. Okay? Not only are they hard to come by, but they're difficult to copy. And we'll provide some examples of this. And that, in addition to be difficult to copy, it's hard to find other things that do the same job. Okay? Now, in another video, I'm going to talk about some examples of VRIN strategic assets. Okay, so we'll kind of flesh these ideas out, but you should remember this list: valuable, rare, imperfectly imitable, and non-substitutable. So these are the strategic assets that information technology can allow us opportunities to acquire, develop, create.